What is language and its significance? Language is a tool of communication. When we say tool, it refers to anything that is used to develop or carry out an action. So it simply means that we need a language to be able to communicate. And do you know that English is our universal language? Owing the fact that you can use English anywhere you go. For example, you travel to Japan and you can't speak Nihongo. You can use the universal language to communicate in some people in Japan or in other country. Language represents its nation. Language is very important for every culture since it also shows the identity of each individual and which group of people they belong. For example, here in the Philippines, we have different indigenous groups and they have their own dialect. Ilocanos have different dialects. Here in Bulacan, we speak Tagalog but with different accent to other Tagalogs. That's how important the language is. Language is the most powerful, convenient, and permanent means and form of communication. Communication and its importance. Communication is a process of transferring messages. If language is the tool, then the communication is the process to transfer messages. Though verbal messages or verbal language is not only thing we can use to communicate. We can use body language to communicate too. And not only human can communicate. Other creatures communicate using their own way of communicating. Communication skills is very important to develop. Why? For example, you travel abroad. You can speak a lot of language but you don't know how to communicate properly. Do you think you'll be able to be understood? Another. First day of class. You are too shy to communicate to your classmates. How do you think you'll be able to be friends with them if you are too shy to even speak a word? So that's how important the communication is. As you can see in the PowerPoint, communication is important to express oneself, to understand, and to be understood. And it can also help you build relationship with others.
Describing various languages and dialects. So, what is a dialect?
Is a particular form a language which is peculiar to specific region or social group. Language may change from region to region, from one social class to another, from individual to individual. These actual changes result in the varieties languages. Example, if a one person utters the sentence May is a farmer and another says the same thing except pronounces the word farmer as farma, the differences is one of the accent. Based on the example, the word farmer changes to farm because it went another country with a different accent. There is similarity but different pronunciation. Example, tomato, tomato, data, data, handkerchief, handkerchief, adult, adult.
What is language discrimination?
Language discrimination occurs when a person is treated differently because her native language or other characteristics of her language skills. Language discrimination is the unfair treatment of an individual solely because of their native language or other characteristics of speech, such as accent, size, or vocabulary and syntax. Language discrimination does not include discrimination based upon an individual's appearance, but rather focuses upon the style of speech used by an individual.
How to combat language discrimination? There are 5 best ways to avoid discriminatory language. First, use people first language. Using people first language is one way to avoid derogatory language. For example, a person with disabilities. People first language emphasizes the individuality, equality, and dignity of people with disabilities rather than defining people primarily by their disability. People first language conveys respect. Second, avoid gender assumptions. Avoiding gender assumptions is another way to remove gender discriminatory words from any interview. This may help us avoid offending a potential candidate that does not identify with a specific gender. Never assume a person's gender identity based on their name or their appearance. If you don't know, use gender inclusive pronouns or ask for their pronouns. Third, acknowledge that we all have accent. Every individual were born in different town or country. For instance, if you were born and raised in the Visayas, your speech may be different than someone from who was born and raised in Luzon. These differences are unique and shouldn't be held against each other in the form of othering differing bodies and identities. Fourth, stand up. Actively stand up for those who are called out for their accents. Make sure that someone who speaks a different variety of English in the USA is receiving the same treatment as someone who speaks American English. Fifth, use social media. Use the power of social media. If you encounter bullying towards certain accent in your community, call them out on social media. Know that although you may not be able to stop prejudice towards certain accents by yourself, it starts with you. To combat language discrimination, the first thing we should have is respect. As long as you carry respect, you cannot offend anyone. As I've told you, we are not only talking about the language, we are also talking on how you will interact to that person or how will you talk to them despite in their appearance or what they are as a person.
How to exhibit appropriate awareness of audience and context. Ethics. First, what is audience awareness? Knowing your audience, whether readers or listeners, will help you determine what information to include in a document or presentation, as well as how to convey it most effectively. You should consider your audience when choosing your tone, content, and language, or else your message may seem unfocused or inappropriate.
If you are addressing everyone in the room, your aim should be to communicate with your audience in a way that is both professional and socially acceptable. Here are some tips to assist you modify your writing or speech to achieve this objective. First, recognize your cultural filter. Your cultural filter impacts how you view the world and might at times prevent understanding diverse backgrounds. Don't be ethnocentric. Assuming that your culture's values, customs, or beliefs are superior to another's is ethnocentrism. It might turn off your audience. Don't assume that all cultural customs are universal. Put aside any biases or cultural slurs. Observe your body language when speaking. Various gestures have different meanings across many cultures. For instance, making eye contact is a show of respect in North America. However, the same eye contact is regarded as scary in Japan and Korea. Second, adopt bias-free language. Biased language favors one group over others, excludes others, and frequently makes unfounded assumptions. For instance, calling something flesh-colored implies that all readers will have the same skin tone or that one skin tone is preferable to another. Third, avoid sexist language and gender-specific terms. Stereotypes that presume one gender to be the norm are produced by sexist language. Non-sexist language refrain from addressing sex at all when it's unimportant. Similar to ethnocentrism, the language we write or speak could imply a negative attitude towards individuals or groups. You run the danger of insulting your audience if your message caricatures a group, even intentionally. Examples of discriminating language to avoid includes racism. Your audience will be diverse. You will be able to effectively communicate with each reader or listener if you are aware of the various cultural frames of
reference. Unless absolutely required, refrain from mentioning ethnicity. Heterosexism. If your essay or speech depicts a relationship, don't assume that each member of your audience is heterosexual. Ageism. Regarding age, there are numerous widespread preconceptions. Lastly, sexism. While sexist language assumes one term for both genders, sexism suggests one sex or gender is inferior to the another. It elevates one sex above the other, while stereotyping that all members of one sex have the same features or characteristic to say that women are emotional than men.